welcome. We begin the news with electoral matters. Venezuelans clash with police over contested poll result. 45 dead, many stuck in Indian landslides. Marcus Jr. welcomes U.S. aid as Blinken Austin arrive Philippines. FBI to interview Trump on shooting investigation, and Northern England knife attack at dance class in just 9. Stay with me for these and more stories. On election matters, over Sunday's disputed poll results, security forces in Venezuela have fired tear gas and rubber bullets against people protesting. Thousands of people descended on central on Monday evening, some walking for miles from slums on the mountains surrounding the city towards the presidential palace. Protests broke out in the Venezuelan capital the day after President Nicolas Maduro claimed he had won. The opposition has contested Maduro's declaration of victory as fraudulent, saying its candidate Edmundo Gonzalez won convincingly with 73.2% of the vote. Venezuela's security forces have clashed with large crowds of protesters who've taken to the streets to denounce the re-election of President Maduro as fraudulent. Opinion polls ahead of the election suggested a clear victory for the challenger. Opposition parties had united behind Gonzalez in an effort to unseat President Maduro after 11 years in power amid extensive discontent over the country's economic crunch. A number of Western and Latin American countries, as well as international bodies, including the United Nations, have called on the Venezuelan authorities to release voting records from individual polling stations. Argentina is one country which has refused to recognize President Maduro's election victory, and in reaction, Venezuela recalled diplomats from Buenos Aires. Diplomats from 6 other Latin American countries, Chile, Costa Rica, Panama, Peru, the Dominican Republic, and Uruguay, have also been withdrawn from what Foreign Affairs Minister Yvonne Gil described as interventionist against actions and statements. Venezuela's government also announced a provisional suspension of commercial air flights to and from the country, with Panama and the Dominican Republic beginning from 2 o'clock local time on Wednesday. Choreographed celebrations, but opposition demands proof. A heavy military and police presence, including water cannons, was on the streets of Caracas, intending to try to disperse protesters and stop them from approaching the presidential palace. Crowds of people chanted freedom, freedom, and called for the government to fall. Footage showed tires burning on highways and large numbers of people on the streets, with police on motorbikes firing tear gas. On some areas, posters of President Maduro were ripped down and burned, while tires, cars, and rubbish have also been set alight. Armed police, military, and left-wing paramilitaries who are sympathetic to the government clashed with protesters and blocked off many roads around the city center. Now, about 45 people have been killed and dozens are feared stuck after heavy rains caused massive landslides in the southern Indian state of Kerala. In the early hours of Tuesday, landslides hit hilly areas in Wayanad district. Rescue operations are underway, but are being stalled by heavy rains and the collapse of a crucial bridge. State Minister A.K. Sasindran says we will be able to assess the extent of the damage only after a few hours. Veena George, State Health Minister, said local hospitals were treating at least 70 wounded people. Closely 101 people have been rescued so far. According to report, District Collector D.R. Magaris said that apart from 36 deaths confirmed in Wayanad, 9 bodies had floated in the Chalia River into neighboring Malappuram district. Wayanad, a hilly district which is part of the Western Ghats mountain range, is prone to landslide during the monsoon season. The landslide have hit many areas in the district, including Mundakai, Atamala, Kuramala, and Kunhum. A bridge linking Kuramala to Mundakai and Atamala has collapsed, isolating the two places and making it hard for rescue personnel to reach stuck families. Rashid Padakal Paramban, a resident, said at least 3 landslides had hit the area around midnight, washing away the bridge. State and national disaster relief teams are conducting rescue operations, and army personnel are expected to reach the area soon. Several locals too have been helping out. Sasindran also said the Army and Air Force had been asked to airlift trapped families and to erect a temporary bridge. Wayanad district and neighboring areas are on alert due to the forecast of heavy rains. Schools and colleges have been closed in 10 of 14 districts. In 2019, 17 people had died after a landslide hit Pathumala in Wayanad, around 10 kilometers from the area currently affected. Prime Minister Narendra Modi said he had spoken to Kerala Chief Minister Pinarayi Vijayan and assured the federal government's help in relief efforts. Modi also announced compensation of 200,000 rupees, that's 2,388,000 US dollars, to the victims' families and 50,000 rupees to the injured. Ferdinand Marcos Jr., Philippines president, has welcomed United States Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin to Manila, emphasizing the need for regular and open engagement between Manila and Washington to ensure an agile response amid continuing tension in the disputed South China Sea. Marcos has moved the Philippines closer to the United States since replacing Rodrigo Duterte in 2022. He greeted Blinken and Austin on Tuesday at the Malacanang Palace ahead of meetings with their Filipino counterparts Enrique Manalo and Gilberto Teodoro. It is the first time Manila has hosted a so-called 2+2 meetings between the two countries. I'm always very happy that these communication lines are very open so that all the things that we are doing together in terms of our alliance, in terms of the specific context of our situation here in the West Philippine Sea and in Indo-Pacific are continuously examined and re-examined so we are agile in terms of our response, according to Marcos. Blinken said the discussions were a sign of a steady drumbeat of very high level of engagements between our countries. The Philippines is one of many Southeast Asian nations that claim parts of the South China Sea, and tensions with China, which claims almost the whole waterway, have increased sharply over the past year. Second Thermal Shoal, which lies around 200 kilometers, 124 miles from the western Philippine island of Palawan, and over 1,000 kilometers, 620 miles from China's southern Hainan Island, and where Manila carries out regular resupply missions to a ship that is grounded there in 1999 and has emerged as a key flashpoint. A Filipino sailor last month lost a finger after a confrontation that Manila described as intentional high-speed ramming by the chief Chinese Coast Guard. While Manila turned down U.S. offers of assistance, it reached a provisional arrangement with China this month to manage differences, but the details of the deal have not been released. Matthew Miller, State Department spokesperson, said Blinken and Austin discussed the Marcos, their shared commitment to upholding international law in the South China Sea, with the U.S. officials reiterating the U.S.'s ironclad commitment to the Philippines under the two countries' mutual defense treaty. Blinken and Austin traveled to Manila after discussions with their counterparts in Japan, another major U.S. ally in the region, where they announced an upgrade of the U.S. military command in Japan and labeled China the greatest strategic challenge facing the region. That visit also included a meeting of foreign ministers from the so-called Quad grouping that includes the US, Japan, Australia, and India. The group condemned China's actions in the South China Sea, where it has become increasingly assertive despite an international court ruling in 2016 that it claims that had no legal merit. China's Ministry of Foreign Affairs hit back at Washington and Tokyo over the court statement, saying its actions constituted normal military development and national defense policy, and accusing the court of artificially creating tension, inciting confrontation, and containing the development of other countries. The Pentagon has said U.S. officials will announce $500 million in foreign military financing for the Philippines during the visit, part of $2 billion in aid for Asian Pacific countries the U.S. Congress sees as confronting Chinese aggression. In the United States, Donald Trump has agreed to be interviewed by the FBI as part of its probe into the assassination attempt at his rally in Pennsylvania earlier this month. The FBI did not give a date for the interview but said it will be a standard victim interview we do for any other victim of crime in a call on Monday. FBI Special Agent Kevin Rojak said, "We want to get his perspective on what he observed. Despite poring over mountains of evidence, investigators are yet to determine a motive to explain why Thomas Matthew Crooks opened fire on 13th July. Meanwhile, newly released text messages have shown the 20-year-old was spotted by a local SWAT team over 90 minutes before the shooting, much earlier than earlier thought. The messages, according to reports, will add to the list of security failures that preceded the assassination attempt against the ex-president. On Monday, the FBI investigators believe Crooks conducted careful planning ahead of the July 13th rally and made significant efforts to conceal his activities. That planning, which included 6 purchases of components for explosive devices, was conducted in a manner that would not significantly raise the suspicions of his parents, Rojek said. Numerous probes have been launched into what went wrong in securing Butler Fair Showgrounds on 13 July. Secret Service Director Kimberly Chiatel resigned after admitting failures. On the day of the shooting, the agency was in charge of security within a fenced area, and local law enforcement were responsible for areas beyond that. On Monday, 2 children have been killed and 9 wounded in a knife rampage aiming a Taylor Swift-themed dance class in a town in northern England, with a teenage suspect arrested over an attack one witness described as a horror movie. Merseyside Police's Chief Constable Serena Kennedy said 6 of the injured children are in critical condition, and the attack also left 2 adults in critical condition. Kennedy said that the police understands the attacker walked into the premises armed with a knife and started to attack the children. We believe that the adults who were injured were bravely trying to protect the children who were being attacked, she said at a news conference on Monday evening. Merseyside Police said it received reports of a stabbing in Southport, north of Liverpool. Emergency services were called to a major incident in the town at around 11:50 a.m. local time. A 17-year-old boy was arrested at the scene on suspicion of murder and attempted murder. The investigation is in its early stages and the motivation for the incident remains unclear. However, counter-terrorism police Northwest have offered their support, according to Kennedy. The police said earlier the incident was not treated as terror-related. According to report, local business owner Colin Parry was one of the people who called the police, said the incident in Southport was like a scene in a horror movie. Parry said he believed a number of young girls had been stabbed. The mothers are coming here now and screaming. It is like a scene from a horror movie, Parry said, adding that police have got him. The businessman said he had directed police to an address in Hart Street behind the Hart Space Studios, where one of the events listed at the time of the stabbing was. The Alder Hey Children's Hospital Trust in Liverpool, about 20 miles from Southport, declared a major incident. On more stories, protesters stormed base after soldiers held for Gaza abuse. Israeli far-right protesters broke into an army base in a show of support for soldiers accused of brutally mistreating a Palestinian prisoner there. Huge crowds assembled outside the Sydney Tayman compound after Israeli military police entered it to detain the reservists, who are now subject to an official probe. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu released a statement intensely condemning the incident and calling for an immediate calming of the passions. Protesters also broke into a second military base where the reservists were taken for questioning, but a police spokeswoman said officers were able to clear it. Day Tayman near Beersheba in southern Israel has for months been at the center of reports of great abuses against Gazan detainees. At least 9 Israeli soldiers at the base are accused of abusing the Palestinian detainee, a suspected Hamas fighter who was captured in Gaza, according to report. He is said to have been hospitalized after what Israel reports describe as serious sexual abuse and injuries to his anus that have left him unable to walk. On Monday, dozens of protesters, including far-right MPs from Israel's governing coalition, burst through the base's gate as others tried to scale the fence, chanting, "We will not abandon our friends, certainly not for terrorists." Some soldiers at the base reportedly used pepper spray against the military police personnel who arrived to detain the reservists. Israeli military chief of staff Lieutenant General Herzi Halevi said the break-in at Tayman was extremely serious and against the law. Demonstrators also entered the military base in central Israel, where the accused reservists were taken for questioning. Yoav Gallant, defense minister, said the probe into the soldiers' conduct must be permitted to continue, adding, even in times of anger, the law applies to everyone. However, some Israeli politicians have condemned the arrest of the reservist Itamar Ben-Gvir. The far-right national security minister called their detention nothing less than shameful. Since the 7th October Hamas attack, Israeli authorities have rounded up and held thousands of Palestinians, often without legal representation. Still on Israel-Gaza war, United Nations says 86% of Gaza under Israeli evacuation orders. The United Nations say 86% of the besieged Gaza Strip is present under Israeli evacuation orders as 33 more Palestinians are killed in yet another day of attacks and displacement. On Monday, thousands of Palestinians fled the Bureij and Nuseirat refugee camps in central Gaza after the Israeli army issued new evacuation orders. Philippe Lazzarini, head of United Nations RWA, the United Nations Agency for Palestinian Refugees, said 86% of the besieged enclave is under evacuation orders issued by the Israeli military. In addition, schools that have been turned into shelters for displaced have been aimed. Meanwhile, at least 3 people were killed and others injured when the Israeli army again bombarded Al-Mawasi, an area in southern Gaza earlier declared a safe zone by Israel. Officials in Gaza said 33 Palestinians were killed across the enclave on Monday, while the overall deaths since October were reported at 39,363, with over 90,000 others wounded. An approximated 1,139 people were killed in Israel during the Hamas-led attacks on October 7th, and over 200 others were taken captive. In African scenes, you consciously decided to leave, ANC Secretary tells Zuma, in spite denouncing the ANC and leading the MK to a 3rd place finish in the parliamentary polls. Ex-President Jacob Zuma insisted he remained a member of the ANC. On Monday, the party formalized his expulsion. The ANC Secretary General criticized Zuma's attitude. Fikile Mbalula said, and I quote, "We don't know why you have a party and then you argue for your membership when you have taken a conscious decision to leave the ANC. You have questioned the integrity of the ANC." Zuma joined the ANC Youth League in 1959 and rose through the ranks to become the party leader. After leaving office, the former president retained a strong political capital. Zuma's MK party denounced the expulsion and accused the ANC's disciplinary committee of behaving like a kangaroo court. It has alleged that Jacob Zuma nor his designated representative had been informed of the ruling in violation of the ANC's constitution. The ANC has suspended the membership of the 82-year-old in January. We take a breather now, and when we come back, I'll bring you stories, particularly from Nigeria. Don't go anywhere. You're welcome back now. Stories from Nigeria. With hardship protests, security deploys soldiers, police, and mass ahead of the August first hashtag bad governance protest planned by some youths and civil society groups. The military and the police have started a massive nationwide deployment of soldiers and police personnel. On Monday, reports also show that the security agencies, including the Nigeria Security and Civil Defense Corps, have put their personnel on red alert in anticipation of the proposed nationwide rally organized to draw the government's attention to the economic hardship faced by citizens. The organizers have refused appeals by the presidency and police authorities to abandon the demonstrations, want an improvement in the soaring cost of living and a reversal of some harsh government policies, particularly the removal of petrol subsidy. The subsidy removal, along with ongoing security issues in farming regions, has led to increased transportation costs and subsequent food inflation. And while most states distance themselves from the impending protests, which government, prominent persons and groups fear might hijack, they are not giving anything to chance. As observed, there is an unusual presence of security personnel in several states and in Abuja, the capital. Major General Edward Buba, the Director of Defense Media Operations, confirmed the troops' deployment, but said there was nothing new about it, noting that soldiers have always been deployed across the country for counter-terrorism operations. He said, and I quote, "Troops have always been deployed across the country in counter-terrorism and counter-insurgency operations. There is nothing new about that deployment." Checks, however, revealed increased surveillance patrol by the Guards Brigade, Police, Nigeria Security and Civil Defense Corps, and other security agencies in the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, on Monday. This comes just as youths in Niger State took to the streets in protest on Monday, barely 1 week after Governor Mohamed Bago announced that the state's youths will not be part of the nationwide protest tagged #EndBadGovernance. The protesters, who appeared unwilling to wait till Thursday, chanted anti-government slogans and carried placards with inscriptions like "Enough is enough," "Stop anti-masses policies," "We are not slaves in our country," "Hardship is unbearable," "Fuel subsidy must be back," amongst others. The youths reportedly blocked the Abuja-Kaduna road but only left following the intervention of soldiers stationed on the highway. Also, there was slow vehicular movement on the Abuja-Kefi and Abuja-Lokoja roads caused by the roadblocks set up by the military and police personnel. Additionally, some residents of Kubwa, Dutse, Alhaji, Maraba and Buari reported noticing an unusually high number of security vehicles patrolling their areas. And finally, on the news, Tinubu orders NNPCL to set crude oil to Dangote, others in Naira. Yesterday, President Bola Tinubu instructed the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, NNPCL, to instantly begin engagement with local refineries, including the Dangote refinery, in transactions dominated in Naira. This was as the federal government yesterday dispelled the fears of non-compliance with the new minimum wage, saying the extensive discussions and consensus building undertaken from early February to July 2024 meant all the key stakeholders were involved. Tinubu also questioned the rationale for the planned protest planned for August 1st, especially when he was already tackling most of the challenges confronting the nation, particularly those concerning the youths. The directive to the NNPCL was revealed by the Executive Chairman, Federal Inland Revenue Service (FIRS), Dr. Zach Adedeji, at the State House after the Federal Executive Council FEC meeting that was presided over by Tinubu. According to Adedeji, apart from extending the sale of crude oil to Dangote refineries, it will also include sale of Dangote's products to others to be conducted in Naira. He said the decision targets to lessen the heavy dependence on foreign exchange effects for crude oil imports, which presently accounts for between 30 to 40% of Nigeria's FX expenditure. Adedeji further explained that by dominating transactions in Naira, the federal government expects to significantly reduce its FX burden, just as he estimated annual savings of around $7.3 billion. He emphasized that the shift towards stabilized crude oil prices domestically by minimizing effect of FX fluctuations. The FIRS board said the new policy was anticipated to ease pressure on Nigeria's FX reserves, reduce monthly FX expenditure on petroleum products to $50 million from approximately $660 million. He added that as part of the implementation, the African Export-Import Bank, Afreximbank, was selected as the pilot settlement bank to facilitate these very transactions. Another look at the top stories. Venezuelans clash with police over contested poll result. 45 dead, many stuck in Indian landslides. Marcus Jr. welcomes U.S. aid as Blinken, Austin arrive in Philippines. FBI to interview Trump on shooting investigation. And Northern England knife attack at dance class kills 2, injures 9. And that's all on the news. Thanks for watching. From the crew, have a blessed day.